Before Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, or Sandra Bland, there was Oscar Grant. The current movement against police terror and for accountability and justice can trace its first iterations to this moment, when Oscar Grant was killed by a Bay Area Rapid Transit police officer on January 1st, 2009. Captured on numerous digital devices, Oscar's death would be the first murder prosecution of an on-duty Bay Area police officer. Before that would occur, however, Oscar would be murdered in the media and in the court system. It was a triple murder. No doubt, the murders of Oscar Grant tells this story.
"'Tis woman's strongest vindication for speaking that the world needs to hear her voice." Anna Julia Cooper wrote those words in 1892. You would think she's speaking about today. White supremacy and patriarchy, by definition, belittles and ignores the voices of Black women. Some of Us Are Brave, a Black woman's radio program, was a corrective to that, centering and airing the voices, views, and experiences of Black women, documenting them and capturing moments in time. The program aired on Pacifica Radio for almost a decade. Many of those voices have been preserved here, and Some of Us Are Brave, interviews and conversations with sisters on life, art, and struggle. Edited by Tandisizwe Shimaringa.
Greetings, good late afternoon, good evening. How y'all doing? My name is Tandisizwe Shimaringa, and this is Rootwork here on Black Liberation Media. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Those of you who are tuning in live, and those of you who will see today's show later on. Let me do some housekeeping real quick before we jump up in here. Please like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Like the video now in case you forget later on or get pissed off and really don't like it. Hopefully you forget you didn't like it and you've already liked the video and you can't go back and unlike it. Share the link. Subscribe. Make sure that you have subscribed to both Black Liberation Media and the Rootwork channel. As you see below at the bottom of the screen, the Patreon is scrolling. Please support Black Liberation Media. This is an independent Black media platform. It is crucial that we are able to continue to bring you news, information, analyses that you're not going to get anyplace else. I used to fundraise for Pacifica Radio all the time. I'm fundraising for us now. We've got a morning show, the Remix Morning Show, where people can send super chats. We've got our own, some of the hosts, such as myself, have our own Venmo and Rootwork information, as you can see scrolling down below. And we also have the Patreon, where you can become a member and directly support what Black Liberation Media does on a daily basis. Every day is something going on this channel, right? So you can get your alternative from what you usually watching, what you're usually ingesting. You can get the alternative here on Black Liberation Media. Now, I want to say a couple of words about today's show, our interview with Loretta Ross, which is a pre-recorded interview. This interview took place in March. Chip Burleigh was a white supremacist or anti-racist political researcher. He did a lot of research around the CIA and the work that they were doing across the globe, but he also delved into white supremacist research. That is how I first came across him in a magazine. It was either Z Magazine or Covert Action Information Quarterly. He passed away in February of this year. And this was around the same time that I came across Linda Hamilton, who we had on the show last week discussing the links between evangelical Christianity, fragile white masculinity, white supremacy, and capitalism. And as a correlation, as a corollary, excuse me, to that, I said, I need to talk to Loretta Ross because she has a deep history in anti-racist research and work and organizing. So this interview, like the one last week with Linda Hamilton, which, by the way, I thought was really good. Y'all really ought to check it out if you haven't checked it out. But anyway, today's interview was conducted at the same time back in March. Today's interview with Loretta Ross, conducted in March along with Linda Hamilton. I'm just now getting to showing the interviews today, this month in June. Why? Because I'm trifling. That's the only explanation I have for it. So I'm not even going to hold y'all, as Amber say. I'm not going to hold y'all. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Just being trifling. But I wanted to give you some introductory remarks about Loretta Ross before we go into the interview. So Loretta Ross is mainly or largely known, well, it depends on who you are, but for a lot of folks, she's known for her work in the reproductive justice movement. And I should have her on just to talk about that by itself. We do get into that aspects of her journey in reproductive justice in today's episode, because there are aspects of reproductive justice that are, of course, targeted by white supremacists. But at any rate, let me give you these few words. This is from, I believe it's the Women's History website. Loretta Ross is an academic and activist who has dedicated many years to advocating for women's rights and reproductive justice. Most notably, she is a co-founder of Sister Song, Women of Color Reproductive Justice Collective. She served as a previous executive director of the DC Rape Crisis Center. She is one of 12 women credited with coining the phrase and framework reproductive justice. She was also executive director of the National Black Women's Health Project for about 2 years. That was founded by Billy Avery in Atlanta, Georgia. Ross continues to be regarded as a voice of authority on women's rights. She continually combats racism, sexism, and sexual violence, particularly by creating coalitions by and for women affected by these inequities. That's one aspect of who Loretta Ross is. Also, again, as I say, we're going to be talking today about white supremacy and connecting the dots and how reproductive justice and all these other movements are connected and need to work better together. But there's another aspect of her life that's kind of fascinating. One of the things that I've been doing in addition to root work is been conducting oral history interviews with a lot of movement elders here in Los Angeles and movement elders in other cities when I can get to them. But the Black Power movement in Los Angeles, other than Gerald Horne, a lot of people don't really talk about it. A lot of people don't really know about it. And I've been blessed to have met a lot of these people, been put in touch with them, able to gain their confidence and trust and conduct interviews with them. One of the joys and one of the pains of doing these interviews is when I'll call someone to introduce myself and set up an interview to talk to them about why I want to talk to them. This is just to set up the interview. We ain't got to the interview yet. Just setting up the interview, all of these jewels just start tumbling from their mouths, and I ain't recording them yet. I have to tell them, stop, wait. It's so much of people's lived experiences. And when you talk to a lot of these elders, a lot of these folks, some of whom are well known, some of whom are unsung, but actually did good work, you'll find out that they're itching to tell people. They have stories within them that need to be told. Why am I talking about that when Loretta Ross is obviously someone whose story is out there? I first heard the name Loretta Ross from Chokwe Lumumba, co-founder, chairman of the New African People's Organization, former mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. May he rest in peace. This was back in the 80s, late 80s, when I was a student at Howard University living in Washington, D.C. Chokwe Lumumba said to me, now, parts of the memory are a little rough, but Chokwe Lumumba said to me, either find Loretta Ross and have her put you in touch with Nakinji Ture, or he said, find Nakinji Ture and have her put you in touch with Loretta Ross. I can't remember which one it was, but the reason Chokwe wanted me to get in touch with one or both of them, he said, have them tell you about Yolanda Ward. That was the first time I heard the name Nakinji Ture, Loretta Ross, and Yolanda Ward. And when they told me about Yolanda Ward, when I looked up Yolanda Ward, that was one of the first stories I had ever heard that scared me. When I mentioned to Loretta that that's how I first heard about her, she said, oh yeah, Chokwe, we were organizing with the National Black United Front and Black Human Rights. But see, that's another aspect. Just came tumbling out of her because of something that I said in an interview about something else. So the jewels that come out of these elders' mouths are exactly that. They are jewels. But at any rate, Yolanda Ward, if you watch the channel regularly, then you know Jared Ball did a show at some point around Yolanda Ward and spatial deconcentration. Yolanda Ward was a student, I believe she was from Texas, out here at Howard University, Washington, D.C., and she was doing work, what we call now today gentrification. But spatial deconcentration was basically a plan put in place after the rebellions of the 60s that talked about the fact that we got to get Black people spread out from these cities because it's just causing too much havoc. It's wreaking too much havoc. They tearing up all our shit. And we got to do something about it. Spatial deconcentration. And Yolanda Ward was an activist in a coalition working around that and a few other coalitions. And one night she goes to a party with some individuals. And for whatever reason, she and the people with her are not allowed into the party. So they're turned away, and as they're walking away, they are accosted on the street. They are held up. But as I think it was 3 individuals, as 2 other individuals are searching, shaking down, you know, the people who are with her, getting their money, their wallets, their jewelry, whatever, Yolanda is taken over to a car, bent over the hood, gun placed to the back of her head, and shot and killed. Yolanda Ward was assassinated. She was 22 years old. And when I tell you that that story scared the shit out of me, when I tell you that story chilled my blood, it's bringing back the memories of the first time I heard that. So that's who Yolanda Ward was. Chokwe wanted me to know about her. And he said, in order to know about her, find Nakinji Ture and or Loretta Ross. So, this conversation I'm having with Loretta today, it's not revolving around Chokwe, not revolving around the National Black United Front, not revolving around Yolanda Ward, but there are so many things that I could be talking to Loretta Ross about. Today we talked about just 2 of those. And so I wanted to give you, as usual, that background information. So now let's get into this conversation with Loretta Ross. I'm speaking with Loretta Ross, who is a well-known, long-time activist, organizer, author, worker for justice. I was going to say primarily known. It's so much you're known for, so I don't want to limit you, but you have done so much work in the field of reproductive justice, um, coined the reproductive justice framework, I believe, one of the first organizers of a rape crisis center in the United States in Washington, D.C. It's so much history, so much, so much, so much. And as I mentioned to you before we started recording, I wanted to speak with you about reproductive justice. But the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that you worked for several years as a researcher on white supremacist organizations. And most recently, Chip Burlett, another anti racist researcher, passed away. I remember Chip Burlett's name from Z Magazine, and I want to say he may have even published in the Covert Action Quarterly, some type of covert information bulletin. This was back in the days when I was a student at Howard University. All of these worlds were being opened up to me. So, again, going to your long term work around anti racist research, one of my guests most recently, she's an author, and I found her on Instagram, and she was providing us with a book list of books that talk about the relationship between fragile masculinity, evangelical Christianity, and white supremacy. And I was like, oh man, not only was that a good conversation, but I was like, I need to have Loretta Ross on here because this is the type of work that you were doing. Was it 30 years ago, 40 years ago?
1990 to 1995, I worked at the National Anti-Klan Network,
Mm-hmm.
renamed the Center for Democratic Renewal. And I had a chance to work with Lenny Zeskin, who also died last year, Chip Burley, who died just a couple of weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and Reverend C.T. Vivian, who
Mm-hmm.
was our boss, who had been an aide to Dr. Martin Luther King. He
Mm-hmm.
used to always walk around saying, when you ask people to give up hate, then you need to be there for them when they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to hear that when Reverend Vivian said that because I was like, the Klan hate me. I'm all right hating them back. And he taught me how to work from love instead of anger
Mm-hmm.
in order to do this work for a lifetime and just not be a movement tourist who parachutes into the movement,
Mm.
burns out, and then leaves a lot of destruction in your wake with your
In your
trauma.
destruction in your wake, absolutely. And it's Chip Burley, not Burlette.
And he did have that French pronunciation on his
Okay.
name.
Okay. My apologies to the spirit of Chip Burley. So yeah, this work that you did at this organization, National Anti-Klan Network, which became the Center for Democratic Renewal, the relationships between patriarchy, fragile masculinity, evangelical Christianity, and white supremacy in this country. That sounds so scary when you say it. And we've seen it. We're in it right now in this scary, toxic soup. What's happening right now. And so, yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you about your experience, your history, researching in this area.
Well, when I first started, there were only men running opposition research centers at the time. I was the first Black and the first woman to run an opposition research center. When Lenny retired, I took over his research responsibilities for the last 2 years I was at the center. What I noticed that the men siloed off all the misogynist violence from the racist violence as if they were happening by separate people. And through my research, me and my team, we were showing that the same people who were doing wanted posters for the Klan were doing wanted posters for abortion doctors. It was the same people. And there were very few of us, all women at the time, that pointed out how porous were the lines between the anti immigrant movement, the anti abortion movement, the racist movement, the anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish movement, the Islamophobes, the Christian nationalists. It was the same people.
And when you a minute ago you said the same people doing wanted posters for the Klan were doing wanted posters for anti-abortion.
In other words, the same people who were putting out hit jobs on Black people and Jewish people
Okay.
for racist violence were the same people who were putting out the posters on abortion doctors
Ah, okay.
and clinics.
Gotcha.
In other words, a character, John Burke, who's deceased, thank God, was in the Klan, but he also harbored people who murdered abortion doctors.
What was his name again?
John Burt, Burt.
Okay.
He eventually went to prison because he ran a home for what he called runaway girls or runaway youth and was convicted of sexually molesting the girls in the home. And so when we talk about,
that takes me totally by surprise.
Right. So when we talk about, well, what are we seeing through these Epstein files and what are we seeing in the mass murderers that are taking place and the violence that is so prevalent and pandemic in our society, if you're not following the ideologies, you have no idea how to explain the intersections and interconnections. And the same people who ruled through lies and violence are going to be the same people who manipulate the American public. There's a reason that the FBI has never called a white supremacist group a terrorist organization.
And what
We
is
actually wrote a book called They Don't All Wear Sheets to point out that it ain't just the Klan. It's the people that are in groups like the Oath Keepers, who are law enforcement and military, who also subscribe to white supremacist ideology. And we're seeing this in the January 6th insurrectionists. Carol Mason is documenting how many known anti-abortion terrorists were also at the January 6th insurrection at the behest of Donald Trump. The same people. But when we were pointing this out in the 1990s and 1980s, because the National Anti-Klan Network was formed in 1979 by Reverend Vivian and Ann Braden and others, after the 5 anti-Klan protesters were killed in Greensboro, North Carolina, we were seen as Cassandras. People are like Chicken Little, the sky is falling, and people thought we were catastrophizing, overstating the fascist threat that we were documenting and watching unfold in front of our eyes. And it wasn't until Trump got elected that slowly a number of people started saying, well, maybe they weren't just overstating things. And then when he got elected twice and started this active deconstruction of democracy that we're seeing and unleashing his own private police force called ICE on our communities and stuff. Oh, this is what fascism looks like in lifetime. And I'm just disappointed that when we were monitoring and reporting on this in the 1970s and 80s and 90s, we weren't believed.
Now, you said the National Anti-Klan Network was started in 1979.
Right. After those 5 anti-Klan protesters
That's what I thought.
were murdered in Greensboro, North Carolina, caught on videotape and yet not convicted. Reverend Vivian called together many civil rights leaders, including Ann Braden from Louisville, Kentucky, and others, Reverend Mac Charles Jones, and a number of people from Kansas City. And they formed the National Anti-Klan Network. It was 2 years before the Southern Poverty Law Center was founded. We had the black model that then Morris D's Elvis. so to
And I was
speak.
like, ew. Okay. Now, Southern Poverty Law Center, Morris D's, 1981. That was the case of Michael Donald, was it not?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
But that was 2 years after we had gotten organized. So we were
Right.
always the poor cousin to the SPLC.
Yeah, I understand. Michael Donald was the lynching in Mobile, Alabama.
Alabama,
And
exactly.
his mother, I don't, was her name Eula Mae Donald?
I don't remember her name, but I remember being slightly disappointed, if not disgusted,
Hmm.
that they won a lawsuit against a poor organization that was held responsible, a poor clan, or but that the mother never received any compensation or proceeds.
What did they declare bankruptcy? Is that it? She
But
she
that's what
sued the
they're saying.
clan. She
Right,
sued
you
the
do the
clan.
plan, you ain't gonna get no money, but
Mhm.
you're gonna be able to use fundraising emails to make a lot of money for the organization.
Well, yeah, I did. I heard that also, but yeah,
Right.
Southern Poverty Lawson is the one that maintains, I think, the Hate Watch or Hate website, which
Yeah, Plan
categorizes hate
Watcher, that what
organizations.
it used to be called. And I mean, I'm not disagreeing because they're allies in the movement.
Right.
And Morris Dees is no longer there, so they've totally reorganized and hopefully found a better moral compass.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you sit at those intersections, as you
Mm-hmm.
do as a Black conscious radical woman, as
Mm-hmm.
I was, you
Mm-hmm.
notice that the same people doing the anti-gay work are the same people doing the anti-abortion work. They're the same people that are forming skinhead groups and Christian nationalist groups. And when you start actually tracing the personnel and the ideas,
Mm-hmm.
you see that it is a coalition of convenience coming together to attack the entire human rights movement.
Mm. Which brings me to, amongst other things, you you've got two books out, and hopefully we'll get to it. Your most recent one, but early last year, something that you had been talking about for a while, critiquing calling people out in quote unquote cancel culture. Your not most recent book, your book calling in the call out culture. I'm sorry, calling in how to start making change with those you'd rather cancel. And I read somewhere, where did I read it? Let me see if I can find it. I thought I saw a blurb somewhere that said how I don't want to butcher it. Let me just say what I thought I read. What I thought I read
Okay.
was how to use love in the battle against white supremacy. And I was like, I don't know if I want to use love against people who want me dead. That's what I thought when I saw it. So help me
But
out with that.
listen,
Help me
but
out.
listen, do you believe Audre Lorde?
Yes.
Do you believe Martin Luther King?
Well, now wait. Well, let me go back before we get to that.
I'm just saying in
The,
general. You don't have to agree with everything anybody
no, no,
says.
no, 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 no. The master's tools cannot be used to dismantle the master's house.
But love is not the master's
But wait, wait,
tool.
wait. A
Hate is the
temporary,
master's
but
tool.
it can provide some temporary relief, though. It
No,
can
no, no,
provide
it
some
doesn't.
temporary relief.
No, it doesn't. See, our
Okay.
problem, as
Mm-hmm.
I understand it,
Mm-hmm.
is that we can't go against human nature and mother nature like our enemies try to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a losing hand,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you think you are arrogant enough to defeat both mother nature and human nature,
Well, the human nature
the
aspect.
human nature aspect,
Mm-hmm.
no baby comes out the womb learning to hate people.
Right.
That
They're
is
taught that.
socialized. They're taught that. We
Socialized.
come out the womb knowing we are interdependent on each other,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that we serve and get served. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the way we survive.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be taught to alienate ourselves from each other.
Absolutely.
alienate ourselves from our naturally occurring compassion. I mean, think about it. When a natural disaster happens,
Mm-hmm.
earthquake, fire, tornado, whatever, flood, we don't stop and say, oh, I hope that happened to the right people. Oh, I hope they weren't married to the same sex.
We think
Oh, I
it.
hope they had their papers. We only stop and ask two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need help? And can I help?
Mm-hmm.
That is our natural human nature speaking.
Right.
We have to
Unless
be
it's
taught
socialization.
to deny our own natural compassion. That is
Mhm.
not naturally occurring.
And I also believe, regarding Black people in particular, and I haven't traveled all over the world, my understanding is it's pretty much the same, but my concern with Black people here in the US, we have to be retaught to love ourselves, to love ourselves so much that we will defend ourselves against those who are actively working to see us dead.
Well,
Actively working to see us dead.
it's very hard for them to understand us when they're so poor at understanding their own humanity. They can't even understand their own humanity. They don't understand that every human being on this earth is the descendant of mitochondrial Eve, whose bones are in Africa. Every
I
human
don't think
being is
they care.
descended from a black woman.
I don't think they
Every
care.
human being is our cousin.
I don't think they care.
But they don't. But the point is, again, they were socialized that way. They weren't born that way.
No, you know what? I hear what you're saying. I just, that's not my ministry. I
I'm
just
not
can't,
trying
that's
to.
not my
I'm not trying to be a minister, honey. I'm a heathen,
ministry.
right? No. I do. I arrive at this scientifically. This is
Hmm.
not an article of faith for me. I
Hmm.
majored in chemistry and physics. I'm a STEM girl. Woo woo is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the proof in the DNA.
Hmm.
I'm talking about how different environmental environments creates human variation in skin color,
Well,
right? And yet it doesn't interfere in the fact that African people born humanity and
mhm,
African people are going to be the saviors of it. I have
mhm.
no doubt of that.
I agree with you.
That's one of the reasons that it confounds people because we've got this atavistic belief in our blood and our lineage
Mhm.
that whether they care and love us is not required for us to care and love ourselves so
Right.
that we're capable of loving everybody else.
Hmm. Well, I think
It's,
that Black people have shown that we love everybody else. Matter of fact, that might be part of the criticism. We need to stop loving everybody else who don't deserve our love.
oh, come on now. Every family got those cousins who you're related to that you wish wouldn't show up at the family picnic.
We're not going to talk
Don't tell
about.
me that. Don't
We,
tell me you ain't got those cousins because I know I got those cousins and they come in every color.
don't get me started on my ex cousin. I'm sitting in the room right now that he destroyed, and I had to redo. So yeah, I had a cousin because he's an ex cousin right
But
now.
that's what I'm saying. If you the African worldview is that everybody is a cousin,
I
and you
know.
got good cousins and you got bad cousins. You
Mm-hmm.
got cousins that are once removed. You got cousins that are 25 times removed. But
Mm-hmm.
that don't make them not cousins. But the fact that they're related to you don't mean you don't need boundaries around all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because blood doesn't transcend harm.
Mm-hmm.
You still got to make people
We
accountable for harm.
we
So when we
believe it
say
should, but it doesn't.
offering love, it's like Aisha Simmons say, love with accountability. It's
Mm-hmm.
not just love for the sake of love. It is love because I'm going to model to you for you the human being I hope you become.
You know, listen.
I know.
I'm speaking with Loretta
What's
Ross.
interesting about my calling in book is that the resistance isn't from the right, it's from the left. Because the people on the left think that calling people out and shaming them and blaming them and humiliating them in public is their best strategy for building the world that we want. And I'm like, how's that supposed to work? Now, if that ain't a master's tools thing, shaming, blaming, and humiliating, I don't know what is.
No, it's just okay. It's obviously it's obviously our worldview because I agree that is not an effective tool for our people within our community.
It ain't an effective tool for anybody. There
But
ain't a
when
human
when
being on this
when I'm
earth
dealing with an
that wants to
enemy,
be shamed,
when
blamed, and
I'm
humiliated publicly.
when I'm dealing with an enemy, I
Oh,
hear
wait,
people
wait,
say,
wait, 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 wait,
I
wait.
say,
You get me
I hear
wrong.
people. Let me hold. Let me say. I hear people say, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, and then I think to myself, well, maybe you don't know what an enemy is.
Oh no, see
Somebody
you just
who wants me dead?
no,
Nah,
no,
I
no, no,
can't.
no,
I
no,
can't
no.
do it. I
Don't
can't
get
do
me
it.
wrong. Don't get me wrong.
I can't do it.
The course I teach at Smith College is called White Supremacy in the Age of Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on all their watch lists. I'm everywhere, right? Because they
Mm-hmm.
know I've been doing this for 10 years.
Right.
The minute he came down that golden escalator, I started using my opposition research credentials and knowledge to teach people about fascism. I'm very clear. I ain't trying to call in no damn fascists. They are eliminationists. They do not want to share the planet with people like us.
Right.
I'm very clear about them. I'm not trying to call them in. So don't get my message wrong. I
Okay.
organize and overpower fascists.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that the fascists, their only weapon is lies and violence.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what we got on our side, baby?
Truth. Truth.
Truth,
Mm-hmm.
time, evidence, and history.
Hmm.
We've got the winning hand because these boys can't defeat truth, time, evidence, and history.
No, they
We
can't.
got the planet on our side. We got the universe on our side. We got everything on our side. And our only risk of blowing it is with the call out culture because we're trying to use a master's tool to wield these existential forces.
I'm
That's
speaking
our
with
risk.
I'm speaking with Loretta Ross, who is a renowned academic, feminist activist, co-creator of the framework of reproductive justice, longtime worker in the women's movement, co-founder of the DC Rape Crisis Center.
Well,
And
actually, I was the executive director. Other people founded it, but I'll take it.
okay, you've done enough work around it. And anti-racist researcher, as well as a worker in the women's movement for so long, for so many years. And we were talking about white supremacy and the connections between fragile masculinity and patriarchy. And you were saying how some of the workers were separating misogynist violence from white racist violence. And even though they were being committed by the exact same people, this this need to marry masculinity with evangelical Christianity. Again, it's such a scary. Just saying it is scary, but we're living in it. So what's
And
scary?
we always have been.
Mm,
And that's the other thing. We don't have to take the foreshortened view of white people who are saying, well, I didn't think it would get this bad.
mm,
Excuse me?
mm,
For 500 years, they've been kidnapping Africans, genociding Native Americans, brutalizing immigrants. And we've been telling you about it for 500 years, and you're just now getting the wake up call? I understand why it was far more comfortable to cling to your illusion of innocence.
mm,
But now the world can't afford for you to be asleep anymore. You need to be woke.
mm. That word that they hate. Mm.
I know, and they have a reason for hating it, just like they hate our collective power because they spend billions of dollars trying to keep us from knowing how much power we actually have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. CT Vivian keeps popping back up in my head. I guess he's trying to contact me. For those listeners and viewers, uh, a lot of folks have gotten their history not from books or actual folks who were there, but from movies, from television, from video. Eyes on the Prize was a wonderful documentary series that came out of public broadcasting, WGBH in Boston. And for those who need a visual reminder, C.T. Vivian is one of the ones who was protesting, I believe, in Alabama.
Right. I think against Bull Connor himself.
And he's at a courthouse, and one of the sheriffs comes and punches him in the mouth and knocks him down. And he's bloodied, and he's talking about we're willing to be beaten for democracy, and you misuse democracy. It was such a poignant point in the video. Not to say that that's all who C.T. Vivian is. I'm just saying that's an image for those who remember or who might want to know, well, who is this guy? This is the Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian, one of the founders of the National Anti-Klan Network, which led to the Center for Democratic Renewal, which is where Loretta Ross was doing all of that anti-racist researching. So,
Well, I had 5 beautiful years of directly working with Reverend Vivian, or CT as he liked to call, because he never did like titles. He loved, you call his wife, by her first name, and you call him by his first name. That was how they were. But even after I stopped working directly for him, he was such a gracious man. And we lived only 5 minutes away from each other. I could just show up at his door unannounced, knock on the door. And if he was there, he opened up the door and he'd say, "Come in, sister." Because he never remembered anybody's name under 70 years old. So everybody was sister or brother to him, right?
mm-hmm,
But he
mm-hmm,
leads you to that den with that green leather sectional couch on it that was right behind his library. Reverend Vivian was remarkable. A little of his history was that while he was in Peoria, Illinois, uh, fresh out of college, I believe, because there's a biography on him that you can fact check me on.
mm-hmm,
In 1947, he led a protest against a segregated restaurant in Peoria, Illinois, and
mm-hmm,
organized with white people to desegregate that restaurant. That
mm-hmm,
was a decade before the Greensboro sit in,
mm-hmm,
before Woolworths, before all the things that are documented.
mm-hmm,
Reverend Vivian said, "I can and will work with white people who are opposed to white supremacist ideology
mm-hmm,
and defeat it." And that was a very successful desegregation campaign in 19, and that's how he came to the attention of Dr. King.
mm-hmm,
And so he became one of the strategists and action coordinators for Dr. King.
mm-hmm,
And so Reverend Vivian surprised me one Sunday because one of my jobs was to assist in the deprogramming of white supremacists who had defected from the movement. I mean, we got them after they defected, so I can't say I led nobody out of no hate movement, not at all. Usually they had their epiphanies before they contacted us because we ran kind of like an informal underground railroad to help them relocate and get out of those dangerous criminal enterprises that they were in.
mm-hmm.
Anyway, one of them, Floyd Cochran, and it's in the LA Times, by the way. If you put my name and Floyd Cochran's name in the LA Times, you'll find us in the archives. He
Okay.
came to me one day and said, "Loretta, where's the movement I can join?" And I didn't know what to tell this ex neo-Nazi, who had, from age 14 to 35, he'd only been in the white supremacist Nazi movement. He didn't know how he could use his gift of oratory and his extremely profound biblical knowledge to do good. And so I took his question to Reverend Vivian, because that's who I took all my perplexing questions to. We always stand on the shoulders, right? And I
Mhm.
knew I was standing on the shoulders. I ain't got to figure this out by myself. Let me take it to people that know some answers I don't know. And Reverend Vivian said to me, Martin never meant to build a civil rights movement. And I looked at him and said, what are you talking about? Because I'm from the South. And the way we were talking was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, civil rights leader, like that was all his name. You couldn't leave off any part of it.
Lord.
He said, no, Martin meant to build a human rights movement.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, wait, whoa, Reverend Vivian. I mean, what you talking about? He went to his library and he had a great library. But
Mhm.
anyway, he collected first editions of all Black authors. So I actually held Frederick Douglass's autograph in my hand and Phyllis
Mhm.
Wheaton's autograph in my hand out of his collection. But moving right along.
I'm speaking to Ross, who is a now. I shouldn't say this, but it wouldn't be a work show without a technical difficulty. Y'all bear with me. I'm gonna get it together.
And Abdullahi Al Nahim, a Sudanese Muslim lawyer, and we founded the National. And I looked at him and said, what are you talking about? Because I'm from the South. And the way we were talking was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, civil rights leader, like that was all his name. You couldn't leave off any part of it.
Lord.
He said, no, Martin meant to build a human rights movement.
Mhm.
And I was like, hey, wait, whoa, Reverend Vivian. I mean, what you talking about? He went to his library and he had a great library. But
Mhm.
anyway, he collected first editions of all Black authors. So I actually held Frederick Douglass's autograph in my hand and Phyllis
Mhm.
Wheaton's autograph in my hand out of his collection. But moving right along. He went to his library shelf and pulled out a copy of Dr. King's last Sunday sermon, March 31st, 1968, 4 days before he was assassinated.
Mhm.
And Dr. King talked about how we were in the midst of a triple revolution, a revolution in weaponry with our ability to destroy the planet many times over through the atom bomb, a revolution in communications with our ability to talk instantaneously with anybody around the globe. But he said the most important revolution is the human rights revolution,
Mhm.
that freedom explosion taking place around the world. And I
Mhm.
swear, when he read me that speech, I said, wait a moment. Everybody told me Dr. King had a dream. Ain't nobody tell me he had a plan. you know? And I was astounded how not only was he killed, but the plan was killed
Mhm.
with his death. And so Reverend Vivian joined me with Shulamith Kernick, who was an Israeli American who fought for Palestinian rights, and Abdullahi Al Nahim, a Sudanese Muslim lawyer. And we founded the National Center for Human Rights Education because
Mhm.
we felt that if those of us who were activists didn't know Dr. King's plan, what does the rest of the world, and particularly the Black community, not know? And
Everything.
so for 10 years, we distributed over 1 million copies of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights because people
Mhm.
can't fight for human rights they don't even know they have.
That's right.
And so I'm glad that a Black Christian minister, a Black Muslim lawyer, a white Jewish Palestinian activist, and a Black heathen like me
Black heathen woman. Mhm.
right, came together to create profound transformation in our society. Now the term human rights is on everybody's lips.
Mhm.
But that was not the case before 1996,
I
when we
believe I
decided
have
to
some of those
transform.
pamphlets.
Huh?
I think I have some copies of those.
Right.
The
When we
Universal
decided
Declaration
to
of Human Rights.
transform how people went from civil rights to human rights,
Mhm.
following and implementing Dr. King's dream.
Mhm. Mhm.
And Malcolm X, by the way,
I was going
has
to say
said it,
Malcolm.
right? But guess what? The first mention of human rights was even 100 years before that.
Mhm.
When Frederick Douglass in 1858 protested the lynching of a black man in New York City and called it a human rights violation.
Mhm.
So
Ashe.
we've had this language available to us for centuries,
Mhm.
but it's been kept from us because they don't want us to know what our human rights are, because we would fight for them if we did. Everything Trump is doing should have him in front of international criminal
Tribunals.
court.
Yes. Yes.
And that's why he
Absolutely.
wants to defund the United Nations and stuff, because he does not want to be held accountable. He wants the people on the International Criminal Court to have their right to enter the United States withdrawn. He is afraid of global accountability,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
mostly he's afraid of the American people
Mhm.
knowing what he and his whole pedophile ring have been doing for the last 50 years in our society.
4 years. Yes. Absolutely. And see, this is what I'm talking about. I could talk, well, you don't have the time, but I could talk to you for hours. Yeah. Okay, look, we're going to have to cut this off and bring you back at some other point in time. So now, again, your roots in the anti-racist, anti-white supremacist work and research are deep, but so are your roots in the reproductive justice movement. And in addition to your book, Calling In How to Start Making Change with Those You'd Rather Cancel, you also have a book that came out in the latter part of 2025. Let's talk about that book. Tell us the name and what it's about.
I co wrote this book with Marlene Gerber Freed, one of my dearest white co conspirators.
Mhm.
And it's always interesting when a black woman and a Jewish woman come together to wholly deconstruct and analyze white supremacy and
Mhm.
how it has these different impacts. But I got to reproductive justice not because I was abortion rights activist. I
Mhm.
got to it because I was incested at age 14 by a married cousin who
Mhm.
got me drunk so that he could have sex with me. He
Mhm.
was 27, I was 14. Mom thought it was a good idea for him to babysit me. It wasn't.
Mhm.
And so in 1968, pregnant through incest, abortion was not an option. So I
Mhm.
had to carry that baby to full term. And my only decision was whether to keep him or give him up for adoption. And
Mhm.
I chose to keep my son.
Mhm.
And so I ended up co-parenting with my rapist. And then a few years after that, I had a legal abortion because I was
Mhm.
very lucky to be in Howard University in
Mhm.
Washington, D.C., when D.C. decriminalized abortion 3 years before Roe v. Wade.
Mhm.
And then a few years after that, I got sterilized by the defective Dalcon Shield. So I
Mhm.
had a full term birth, an abortion, and a sterilization. So
Mhm.
that's what led me to working with 11 other Black women in 1994 when we co created the theory of reproductive justice, because we joined with the pro choice movement in fighting for the right not to have children through the use of birth control, abortion, or abstinence, but because we were Black women always subjected to strategies of eugenics and population control, we had to fight equally hard for the right to have children. Fannie Lou Hamer talked about that. And
Mhm.
the thousands of Native American and Black and Mexican American women who were sterilized as part of creating a white society for America. And so then we offered a critique of both the pro choice and the pro life movement for not paying enough attention to what happened to children once they were born.
Mhm.
So reproductive justice was founded on the right to not have children, the right to have children, and the right to raise your children in safe and healthy environments. That's what we needed,
Mm.
not just one or the other, but all three together.
All, all of them.
And then 10 years after that 1994 meeting, the LGBTQ movement started saying, hey, wait a moment. Y'all need to expand this, the right to talk about bodily autonomy and gender identity
Hmm.
and the things that don't necessarily deal with having children or not having children, but the right to just exist as simply a human being
Hmm.
without people deciding that you should not exist, that you should not have the same human rights as everybody else. And
Hmm.
so, one of the things I like about reproductive justice is its expandability and flexibility, because everybody who uses the framework adapts it to their own need.
Hmm.
So, Native American people talk about sovereignty in a way that non Indigenous people don't talk. But
Hmm.
people who are immigrants talk about citizenship rights,
Hmm.
birthright citizenship, that people who are born with US passports don't need. Queer people talk about their rights in terms of the right to get health care for trans people and all of that in ways that non queer people don't need. So I like its expansiveness, its inclusiveness, and its adaptability. I love the fact that 12 Black women yet again created universal theory. It came out of community, not the academy.
Hmm.
It came out of our lived experiences, but it applies to every human being.
Hmm. The name of the book.
It's called Abortion and Reproductive Justice, an Essential Guide for Resistance, because we wanted to retell the story of reproductive politics through the lens that analyzed white supremacy and neoliberal capitalism,
Hmm.
because too many people only analyze abortion politics through the lens of gender. But
Hmm.
they don't really put enough work into seeing that depending on how you are placed within a racial, class, and gendered hierarchy, you can have different reproductive destinies. Because at the same time, they don't want white women to have abortions. Like Flo Kennedy said, if they could limit abortions to Black women, they would send Cadillacs to take us to the clinic.
Hmm.
you know?
Man.
And so arguing for the right of every human being in general, but Black women in particular, who have experienced forced breeding.
Hmm.
Watch that same kind of forced breeding now being visited on white women.
Hmm.
Y'all are the ones that need to talk to us about what that actually means.
Hmm.
Y'all are just discovering what we have already known, that these people who are challenging, as I said, Mother Nature, human nature, and the universe, they don't even understand the forces they're trying to control.
Hmm.
The chaos they're afraid of is our natural playground. The
Hmm.
human variation they're trying to suppress is what we welcome.
Hmm.
You know,
And they can't stop.
well, they can't win. They can't. They
They
won't stop
they
trying, but they
trying.
can't win.
Hey, they trying, right? But they're not going to win. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really don't think that these boys that can't even control their own dicks can control the forces of the universe.
It ain't never stopped them from trying, and
Yeah,
the
but
destruction that they
you do.
leave.
But do you recognize that they're demographically doomed?
Absolutely.
The world is getting browner, queerer, more female, younger. The youth, now there are more babies of color born in the United States than white babies.
But
That
see,
just
that's what
happened
I'm
this
saying
week.
because they're gasping for survival. They are leaving destruction in their wake because they're fighting. They're fighting a
Yeah,
losing battle, but they fighting.
yeah, but guess what?
Hmm.
We not only have the winning hand in terms of these existential forces I talked about.
Hmm.
Think about it. We got their children because we got them with our music. We got them with our cool and we got them at the ballot box. And they can't build enough gated communities to keep their children from coming home and say, you need to now use the right gender pronouns for me. You need to recognize that I am going to marry and have babies outside of the race. They
Mm,
can't stop it, no
mm.
matter what they do.
Yeah. I'm just concerned about the carnage as they try to stop it.
There's been a lot of carnage,
I
and it's
know.
going to be more,
I'm
but
just
they are
trying.
not going to win. I mean, a friend of mine once said,
Eventually, they
Loretta,
won't win. I hear you. I hear, but still.
yeah, a friend of mine, I've forgotten his name, Bill something or the other. We were at a retreat one time. He said, Loretta, you need to stop obsessing about these pimples on the ass of time. And I've never forgotten that phrase.
Wow, pimple on
When
the
you think of universal forces, these people have only been around for a couple of thousand years. These are not the people.
so much destruction.
I know.
These wayward children, so much destruction.
Oh yeah,
It's
but
being wrought.
think about the grandmother whose grandson came home and killed her. We know that happened in the black community.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that how Betty Shabazz went? If I'm not
Yes, it is.
mistaken.
Yes, it is.
So this is the human condition.
Hmm.
But we can't use our joy, our resilience, and our promise to the future. As a matter of fact, going back to the topic of maternal mortality and infant mortality, I just want you to revision something that is taken for granted as a discussion in the Black community, which is teen pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
There has been so much bad mouthing of young girls or young women who get pregnant. First of all, we're not looking at the intersection because most of these young girls getting pregnant are getting impregnated by men much older than them. So we're talking about childhood abuse that shows up as teen pregnancy. But
Mm-hmm.
let's put that as a fact. But let's deal with the young girls or women who are voluntarily getting pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
We're dealing with huge portions of our community that don't believe that they have a future
Mm-hmm.
beyond their 20s. They can't
Mm-hmm.
imagine becoming 30 or 40 or 50 years old because they're watching people die all around them. They're
Yeah.
not being offered the special support that they need to get through high school and into college. They don't see themselves as having the futures that, people socialized to be middle class have. What if in their minds having that baby as 14 is their promise to the future?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're not going to put it in those kinds of words, but they're feeling it instinctively.
Mm-hmm.
They're feeling it, to use that academic word, atavistically in their genetic imprint, that
Mm-hmm.
there may not be a lot that I can do to change the world. But right now, this is going to be my promise to the future, this baby I'm having right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they invest so much effort sometime in not preventing the pregnancy. Because I've long said that we could put a birth control clinic in her bedroom. If
Mm-hmm.
she plans on being pregnant, she's gonna get pregnant. you
Mm-hmm.
know? But we've always seen it as a dysfunctional choice
Right.
instead of a futurist choice.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm
But
gonna make you think deeply about what you always thought you took for granted, ain't I?
I'm just saying though, yeah, a future choice resources are going to be needed for it to
I
be a
know all of
healthy.
that.
I know you know.
And they don't know all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the
Mm-hmm.
same
And
time,
which is what brings the concern.
I know. But I'm
Mhm.
also trying to understand the impulses that are driving them that we've had poor explanations for because we've just accused them of bad judgment.
Yeah. Hmm.
We've never accused them of having those ancient ancestral needs for continuance and making pledges to the future
Mm.
that
Mm.
are in all of us and get expressed within the limited language that they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I hear you. I hear you.
I'm just saying, let's revisit that
I hear there another way to think about it. I hear
so
you.
that we can stop contributing to the piling on of our young black queens.
Mhm. I've been speaking with Loretta Ross today, who is so many wonderful things. I'm not even gonna try and categorize her anymore. Look her up. Loretta, is it Loretta J. Ross or LorettaRoss.com? Which
J.
one?
Ross, I used the J because there's actually a great religious writer named Loretta Ross, and people get so confused, so they write me talking about the Christian books I've written, which I haven't.
You're a heathen. You are so far from that. But
So I have to use the J now to distinguish me from this very popular white Christian writer.
LorettaJRoss.com.
Yes,
Loretta J. Ross, thank you so much for all of your years of dedication and
thank you.
service. Thank you so much for your work. Thank you for your example. And thank you for being on Root Work today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So yeah, that was the interview with Loretta J. Ross. And real quick, I just wanted to ensure that you understood what she was talking about when she during regarding her reproductive journey. When she says that she was sterilized, we're not talking about her tubes were tied. She was using the Dalcon Shield, which is a company that's now defunct. It was a birth control method, and because it was defective, it sterilized her. It caused her to no longer be able to give birth. So, in addition to government sponsored deliberate attempts to sterilize women of color in this country, there were also defective birth control methods that were placed on the market that ended up sterilizing and otherwise harming various women of various communities. So, real quick, it's 6:08 p.m. Y'all know it ought to be two things you know about root work. It's gonna be technical difficulties, and I ain't gonna hold you long. It's 6:08, started around 5 o'clock. I ain't gonna be here talking and running my mouth for the rest of the evening, right? But I wanted to address one of the comments, just one, or maybe more. But where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Where you at? Done and none. Done and none. You done had a lot to say today, but this part right here, I see analytical shortcomings. And actually, you had made a statement earlier about something about liberalism. Black Liberation Media is a radical black liberation media project. It leans towards the more radical and the more militant. And I say that if you look at the majority of the programming, it's anti capitalist, it is anti imperialist, it is anti white supremacist. I'd say it does a pretty good job of that. As for me personally, I'm going to provide you with information and sources. They might not be all, they might not all be the most radical, because a lot of times we confuse radical with bullshit. We think black berets and black camouflage and black boots and marching around and shit when you ain't got shit else going for you. A lot of people think that's radical and that's militant. Okay? Having a plan, having an analysis, even if it's one you may not agree with, even if it's one that may contain liberalism in it, is still worth something. One of my elders told me, eat the fish and leave the bones. If it's a bone, flick it out. If it's a bone, flick it out. Go on and eat the fish, get your nourishment on, get your protein, and go on about your business and continue to do the work. That's part of what my job is. I'm giving you fish. I personally like sand dab because it ain't got a bunch of bones in it. It only got the backbone. But that's another story for another day. But yeah, this holier than thou, blacker than thou, not militant enough. It's not hard enough. You go tell that to somebody else, man. I'm not trying to hear all of that. Me personally, I'm not trying to hear all that. But yeah, tech spicy. What was the other thing I said? That's gonna happen on a Rootwork show. See, I done forgot. Maybe that's the third thing that's gonna happen on a Rootwork show. My memory is going to fail me. But at any rate, I didn't put it in the show description, but it is here in the live chats, the various links to many of the things that were talked about today. I thought today this conversation was a good corollary to last week's show with Linda Hamilton talking about the linkages between evangelical Christianity, fragile white masculinity, white supremacy, and capitalism. I would love to talk with, I want to talk with Loretta about some of stuff, but I'd love to talk with her more about her critiques of capitalism. But that ain't going to happen today. That ain't going to happen tonight. 6:12 p.m. Los Angeles time means it is 9:12 p.m. on the East Coast. So I don't know if this is past some of y'all's bedtimes. I don't know what else y'all got to do. But I'm going to let you go. I'm looking at some of the comments right now. I mean, you know, I tried to do some pushing back. I'm pushing back in terms of what me myself and I feel personally. I'm not trying to call in or lead with love with my enemies, white supremacists. She clarified, I'm not talking about fascists. I'm not talking about the fact. She made that very, very clear. So there you go. Yeah. Yeah. You know, y'all be I be trying to, y'all be doing so much over in the chat, and I be trying to keep up, and then I can't keep up. Eugenics is global, and nothing will change unless the root is understood. Yeah, well, which root are you talking about? I know the root of white supremacy is fear of white genetic annihilation. And you ain't got to be a fan of Dr. Cress Welsing and her entire body of work to know that she was right about that one. But yeah, the sterilization portion broke my heart. Man, listen, when Fannie Lou Hamer said she went in to the hospital, I forget what it was for, but she comes out with a hysterectomy. You know, I had heard for years about Safia Bukhari, may she rest in peace, escaping from prison because of health neglect. It wasn't until I think I actually asked Jalil Muntakim, or maybe he just said it, but I had him on my show about a year and a half, 2 years ago. He said she had fibroids. And if you know anything about fibroids in black women, I don't know about white women and Latino women or Asian women. I'm talking about black women. One of the things for that happens when you have fibroids, you be bleeding and it don't stop. I'm not telling you what I read. I'm not telling you what I heard. I'm telling you what I know. You will bleed and not stop. And you're now in jail. You're in prison where they control every aspect of your life, even down to whether or not you will get a sanitary napkin. We ain't talking about medical treatment. We talking about a sanitary napkin. Safia Bukhari liberated herself from prison to get the health care that she needed, reproductive, life-saving human right to health care that she needed. So yeah, it's rough. It's rough out there. It's rough. It's rough. But that again was one of the interviews that It's just gems that come out of her mouth, and so many other gems out there when I'm interviewing these elders in particular. So I said I wasn't gonna keep running my mouth, and I just ran my mouth for 4 more minutes. 6:16 p.m., 6:19 p.m. No, we're not doing that. I'm gonna get up out of here. I'm gonna leave here if I can find a video. Oh Lord, I can't find the video. Uh-oh. I don't even. Is that it? Yeah, that might be it. Yeah, that's it. So look, thank you, thank you, thank you, as usual. Thank you so much for tuning in and rocking with me, whether you did it live or you're watching it on the replay. I always appreciate you, even though some folks like Yipper and Jaman and Dun and None, I'm going to beat you up in the comments. I still appreciate you for hanging out. Please remember to like, to share, and subscribe. And if you feel so moved, hit that Cash App, hit that Venmo, hit that Patreon, support Black Liberation Media, and support Rootwork. Yeah, appreciate the hell out of y'all. So let me go ahead on. Let me stop talking. Y'all enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Nothing in Deborah Jones's formative years could have prepared her for life in the US organization. Like many of her generation, she was Black and proud before the phrase became popular. She believed and still believes in the principles for which the organization stood. But her life took a horrific turn on Mother's Day 1970, leaving her in trauma and in silence. In this never-before-told account, Deborah Jones's inspiring story is told. What We Stood For: The Story of a Revolutionary Black Woman by Deborah Jones and Tandisizwe Shimaringa is the compelling and harrowing memoir of one woman's experiences in a leading Black Power organization.
Black Liberation Media is a collective of Black and African organizers, journalists, academics, and media personalities serving Black and African masses seeking to further grow in their understanding of themselves, their histories, and the African world through entertainment and news. Please continue to like, subscribe, and donate to the channel so we can further serve you and liberate our people. You can also go to blkliberationmedia.org, get some merchandise, and also become a Patreon member and a member from the YouTube. Please do what you can, share, and show your love as we will show ours for you. Black Liberation Media.